back all. Episode 33, Money in the Tank. Good to have everybody back. Good to be back on deck. I didn't fight through my flu last week, unlike these two gentlemen, Brad and Arnie. Fought through the flu. You guys are just fighting the good fight, mate, and making me look bad for missing last week.
To be honest with you, mate, I'm at the tail end of mine, so I'm feeling pretty good today. The kids have got it worse than me, so I'm feeling all right. But Braddles, how you feeling?
I think I'm up front. I went to sleep last night bright and early, around 10, and then woke up at about 12:30, and I couldn't swallow. Ooh. And so I think I'm at the front end. So, okay. Power on. Got to be here, Jolly. Got to be here.
Good on you, mate. We might miss you next week, maybe, if it gets worse.
Can't let a man flu take a man down.
Dear. No, good to be here, guys. So Joel Seach, professional principal advisor, Harp LFG. We got
Arnie, tax professional.
Brad, generalist.
Man,
and if you guys want to find us, you can get us at Money in the Tank on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please leave a like, comment, and a subscription like on the YouTube channel. That helps us and helps the algorithm. So cheers.
If we've earned your subscription, that is.
Oh, we've earned it, mate.
Like Arnie's decided for you. You're subscribing.
Yeah, subscribe to us.
Lovely.
So
we've got plenty to get through today, guys. We've got a great rundown. Yeah. Touch on a bunch of different dot points in terms of latest news, bit of crypto stuff, bit of the budget outcome in terms of superannuation and reform, and some of the changes financially from that aspect with the new party coming in. But before all that, Rivkins?
Yeah, Rivkins rules.
Here we go. Let's go to the random page here.
Good. We don't have to Google this week.
Page 66. Yeah, not as good as Google. It's good with the real thing. So the use of money and what it can achieve is the only advantage to having it.
Hang on. The use of money and what it can achieve is the only advantage to having it. Well, no shit, Rivkin.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious.
I'll be bleeping that out. Algorithm doesn't like swearing.
Pretty obvious there, Rivkin.
Captain Obvious.
Rivkin, you can't really do much else with it unless you want to use it for burning a fire or something.
I think you're scraping the bottom of the barrel at that point.
Yeah, Rivkin. Not sure what the goes that one. Do you want a 2 for 1 this week?
Yeah, give us another one.
If you wish to enjoy life, treat money as a renewable resource, which I don't mind that. I don't mind that one.
If you can get your hands on it. Sometimes I feel like Rivkin was maybe a little bit out of touch with the common man, but it's like...
Well, look at the front cover, mate. Is that common man stuff?
I wish I could have renewable money.
Yeah, well, I don't know. On the first one, though, the one about, I forget what he even said now, but money. It made me think of Chamath. Because he started his social capital fund with a view of earning enough money that he could, one, get himself at a table where all the world's most important decisions are made so that he can then make them for the benefit of mankind. That's his whole purpose and mission statement. So if you want to think about it at like the really high level, you could think about it like that.
Yeah, I like Chamath when he came out with that, value proposition and ethical ways and, started saying he made his money in social media and he comes into this world and he wanted to do that. And then he started doing some SPACs and started, talking some stuff up and then selling at certain times. I don't think Chamath is there for the everyday man either.
You think it was a bit unethical?
I think Chamath's a bit unethical. Love the guy until I hated the guy.
It's a great segue into some of the topics this week, isn't it, Arnie?
I was going to say, what do you segue us, Jolly? What are we talking about?
Ethical, sustainable governance, ESG. So it's a topic that comes up more and more now, and I've been in the planning and advice industry for 15 years now, and it used to be brought up, but it was always associated with something maybe in the future, or the costs are really high when you're doing it and the performance isn't there. Fast forward 15 years, and it's definitely at the forefront of a lot of conversations now, and a lot of fund managers, investment committees, if they have their head in the sand around these areas, then they're missing a big part of what I think the future will be, because all the consumers out there and people that are putting their money into these different investments that are out there, they're wanting to see, a lot of them are wanting to see an overlay that these investment committees or investment funds or fund managers, hedge fund managers have some kind of governance in place, and ESG governance, sustainable governance, ethical sustainable governance can have a quite broad slant to it. So there can be ethical and then it can be very, very ethical. So we'll drill into a bit of that today, but it's a really cool topic, and it's a topic that's going to be, I think, here now and for the future.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry,
go. You go ahead, Brad.
Don't want to talk over you, mate. No, I just wanted to kind of also say, I mean, people can also in their heads may have heard environmental, social, and governance. There's kind of a couple of different, abbreviation terms, but I think Joel's kind of a quick definition on there, just so people on the tank that may have heard some other kind of ones. I think it is turning into kind of more ethical, sustainable. So.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, like, I've heard different words used for the E. So it's either ethical or I've also heard environmental. But I've also heard that it's social and governance. So you could even call it EESG, because I feel like it's kind of, or maybe even the ethics is captured in the social. But I've got a little thing on my phone here just to read it out for the tankers so we can have our minds in the right space. And maybe we could even find it on a screen share. But
it was my bad. Yeah, definitely it's environmental, social, governance. But yeah, ethical, I guess, was on my mind there from talking about it before. So.
But it's part of it, Jolly, because the ethical part would fall into the governance and even the social responsibility. And if you think about it, really, ethics and morals are kind of like the layer above the ESG pillars.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole reason we look at it. So yeah, just to shout out like the way I like to think about it. I've got it on my phone, so apologies. I'm going to read it directly off my phone, tankers, because it's like a fair bit of words and jargon here. But you think about the three pillars, ESG, and then underneath those pillars, you've got things like climate change, natural resources, and pollution. And obviously, that would fall under environment. Then under social, you've got internal stakeholder management, external stakeholder management, and then under governance, you've got board quality and corporate behavior. But then outside of those pillars, you've got factors. So if I think about social, you've got like workers' rights, diversity, human rights, customer rights. And then under governance, you've got ownership and control, board independence, board effectiveness. And then under environment, you've got water management, biodiversity and land use, transition to a low carbon economy. So that's not all of them. That's not like it's broader than that, but that's just some examples about what we're talking about when we talk about the ESG factors.
All the goodness, basically. And I think a couple of key things up front. Couple of facts that I drew up was that at the moment within AXA, Jolie, just I know that you're over at AXA, but they've gone from 43% to 63% of their advisors now kind of using positive ESG screenings as a part of kind of portfolios for customers. So, I mean, there's a massive jump up there. There was a BNP Paribas ESG global survey done only a couple of months ago with asset managers and institutions saying that 79% of institutional investors are now expected to make ESG investments central to their portfolio in coming years.
Yep.
And I guess it's no surprise then that ESG FTs, mutual funds, private funds, institutional mandates expected to reach 30 trillion by the end of a decade.
I'm a little bit surprised. Sorry to cut you off. I'm a little bit surprised to hear that AXA is only using 63% of managers to do that screening. Like, what are the other 37% doing?
I mean, that's worldwide. So
worldwide,
I think ESG definitely, I would say, is it's a topic for everybody. Because I mean, even as recently as a couple of days back, you had the Pacific Islands all get together and start discussing, whether or not they're going to sign into, the new China policy or around security and trade, or stick with kind of Australia. And since Australia government changed and kind of started pushing ESG and climate change, right, they care about it because obviously they're impacted. But I would say that ESG investments are probably something that's more front of mind in kind of the Western world.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of the values that the governments and society looks at. So I think, different parts of the world are going to care probably more or less about ESG, but I think, the writing's on the wall in terms of its future.
Well, let's run through what we've got. So Jolie can talk us through what he's sort of researched for ESG. Then you can have a look at your stuff, Brad, or talk about your own experiences as well, because it's not just research. Like, you guys work, I guess we all kind of work. This touches our work in different ways. This space. Yep. So yeah, we'll go Jolie, then we'll go Brad, and then I'll cap off with what I want to talk about ESG.
Yeah, no. So I think from an advisor world, as I was mentioning before, there's always been an area of ESG overlay, but it's just really noticed the prevalence increase, especially the last 5 years, and even to a point now where you have such things as SMAs, which is like separately managed accounts, where they're able to, because there's enough investment managers that are specializing in different asset classes, albeit Australian shares, international shares, infrastructure, fixed interest, that have an ethical and ESG overlay. They're able to now put together an SMA which encompasses all those inside of a portfolio and match it to where the client wants to be invested. So it's come to a point now where they've got, they've got sort of spoilt for choice. And I guess one of the sustainable options I'm just having a look at here, they've got things like sustainable development goals that talk to what their aims are out of the actual portfolio. And they even go as far as saying for every $100,000 invested inside of a portfolio, we'd expect to have 70% lower total greenhouse gas emissions, have it Paris aligned, fossil fuel exposures are low, and in line with the Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 to 2, less waste, so 45% less waste, more women on boards and management teams, and then green social sustainability link investment bonds. So having a goal there. So, and then they have kind of overlay of goals of no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education. There's a range of different things that sort of match up to those types of goals. So essentially, that's where we've been seeing from the sustainable portfolios and the sustainable options out there, because it used to be more kind of individual funds or investment managers, and they target Australian shares, they target global shares. Now they've got the ability to bring them all together to help try to put a portfolio together that has impact, and you're able to visually see the impact from their information and their research they provide back. And one last point further to that is sometimes you'll see investment committees that just focus on the investments themselves, and they'll sometimes even have a separate independent investment oversight committee, which will be the sustainable arm's length board, which will say, yep, these investments you put together, this portfolio meet our standards and they've got a high level of standards, or you're going to need to adjust this or that because it's not meeting, the ESG screen that we have. So you'll have, that's what I mean by different types of levels of ESG. You'll have levels where it'll be, that's enough and that covers things, or you'll have a committee that'll say, well, that company you selected there, they're okay, but then they deal with this other company that potentially has this impact we don't like. So you've got different layers of screening, and that's probably the thing to be mindful of is, they can label things with an overlay, but once you start to dig in, you'll work out how core that principle they're abiding by with the ESG screening is to their portfolio they're managing. So for me, that's sort of my overview in terms of ESG for you guys and for the listeners out there, just to provide a bit of a context around what ESG portfolios are and SMAs and how they work, and how investors and people are looking at them as part of their overall portfolio. And the performance of these is now coming up to par, if not better than, some of their peers that aren't and don't have a sustainable focus, because I think the end consumer and the person buying from the shops has that in mind when they're purchasing now, and it's I think it's going to be key in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, just before we go to you, Brad, even think back to our 50-50 topic last week, Patagonia versus North Face. And Jolie, I think you mentioned like ESG factors, and it's partly what we think about when we buy consumer products. Yeah. So Brad, what's your experience with ESG?
Good segue as well, Jolly. 77, quick stat, like stats. 77 ASX companies have made ESG their mandate, have added ESG to their mandates in 2021, this 2022 financial year, because investors are literally looking at the stock and going, do you have ESG and what do you do with it? And I actually care about it. So I think it's interesting.
I wonder what that percentage has come up from, Brad. Like,
I try to find it, but no. So it's 77 new ASX companies have added. No, as in like existing ASX companies have added. When I say new, I mean existing. Have added it only in the last year, and I think that goes to probably the prevalence of performance, and there's probably an indication. I'll have a look into it and added the description later on. But what's driving that around the performance? My guess it's a performance of the stock. It's probably like money speaks, right?
Yeah.
going back to I think there's kind of three things I wanted to touch on. Arns. One is just for people that are getting into this area and having a look at, ESG. It's important to kind of understand that all screenings aren't the same, which is what Joel said. But also, don't just jump into something that's probably new on the ESG and what they say in their prospectus, because I noticed recently, and I drew it up. There was a DWS new mutual fund that got put out, and it's getting investigated at the moment by Deutsche and the EU. There's a lot of greenwashing, and I guess greenwashing is a problem at the moment. And what greenwashing is basically due to kind of ESG becoming more prevalent and I guess more significant in terms of decision making. This is where like products are being missold as being kind of more sustainable than they truly are. And so think of it kind of like, in my mind, I think of it kind of like the subprime problem in America. You can kind of package stuff together and all the rest of it, and then it averages, and it doesn't really have the impact. So on paper, using mathematical equations, the rest of it, you can kind of get it to equal a number, but it's actual impacts. And so kind of, I would say, if again, advice, general, all that kind of stuff, blah, 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 don't listen to me. But but just watch out around kind of greenwashing for newer funds and stuff coming onto the markets, and give them a bit of time to kind of be transparent and sort through by the different people that go out there and actually regulate this stuff.
Because a good look to have, isn't it? It's like, the Australian made, and put that on the brochure because that looks good. But how
all it's made is the sticker.
How Australian made is it? So exactly. I like your point on that, and spot on.
I guess the experience I have is just in two areas. One is my company that I part own, Hamatech, which is an area to kind of, I'd say, for investors just to kind of have a look at anything to do with safety, EHS, stuff that's never been really sexy and probably is never going to be sexy, let's be honest. But EHS falls under ESG, and is over the last few years, I'd say the last 3-4 years, especially in the United States, in our operations there, has started to become kind of front of mind, especially for developers and owners, and not necessarily the construction companies. They generally have to fall under what the owners, but the owners, so the people with the money that actually give it to the construction companies, they're now putting a much bigger focus on EHS, which is environmental health and safety, which falls under ESG. So ESG has definitely given anything to do with EHS a kick, and there's numerous other investments around the EHS space, not just in technology, that if you're looking for a space that's probably going to grow over the next decade or two, it's probably an area, again, advice, general in nature, don't listen. But that's something that, personally, I'm obviously tied to and spent a lot of time, and it's been kind of interesting watching how EHS has suddenly become kind of front of mind for so many companies because of the ESG push. It's kind of really put a highlight under EHS and moved it away from this kind of cost center to a possible profit center. They actually care about what's going to happen to the environment and people and stuff, which we always should. And Australia's kind of led the world with the UK in that space, but in other areas of the world, like the United States and stuff, certainly becoming more prevalent. And last but not least is I have my superannuation in Future Super, which look and screen quite hard. There's no investments in anything like, BHP, WPL. There's nothing in any sort of defense contractors, nothing in gambling, nothing in weapons, nothing in tobacco, nothing in fossil fuels. And so they kind of look across the ESG spectrum and kind of screen quite hard. The only one I probably don't agree with is their ban against anything to do with uranium, because I think there's going to be some changes there in the future, but I'll leave my personal opinions on the side.
General in nature, as always. Do your own research.
Do your own research.
Don't give product advice here.
Don't give product advice. But just kind of as a quick fact that I thought was interesting, just to kind of show to people why, for instance, this is one of the reasons why I chose Future Super, is tons of carbon abated by actions. So if you start recycling 0.23 tons a year, you'll abate. If you're vegan, supposedly, I don't know about this general advice, but if you're vegan, 0.8 tons a year, you abate. If you live car-free, 3.5 tons And if you invest in Future Super, supposedly 5.89 tons. So I don't have to become vegan. I can drive a car, and all I have to do is invest in Future Super. No, I mean, just gives an indication to what you were saying, Joel, which is the idea where you're investing into areas of the economy and the stuff, and investing into companies that probably have a positive impact, more positive impact, or less detrimental impact on the environment around carbon and the rest of it. So that's just one of there's more ethical reasons why as well, but that's just kind of one quick snapshot of why. Over to you, Arnie.
Yeah, thanks, boys. And I think you both sort of covered off really well. And I feel like the main overarching theme I'm hearing, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about, is you vote with your dollars. And Brad, you talked about it from a super perspective. Joel talked about it from financial planning perspective. When we talked about ESG, the thing that springs to mind for me is I know that recently like for a little while, my main broker, which is Interactive Brokers, when you're looking at stocks, it has an ESG indicator from like a 0 to 10. And obviously it starts off like red, orange, yellow, green. When you're looking at stocks to buy, and it's just made me think about like how front and center it's become and how like conscious you are now of doing it. So I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper to see how they rate these ESG scores, or how the scores are calculated, which is what I want to talk about today. And basically this is not definitive across how all ESG scores are calculated. It's just an example of how my broker does it. And my broker actually outsources it to a different company. So it's Refinitiv that does it. And they've got an ESG combined score, which then splits into two categories. If you want to give me host, Jolie, I could even share my screen, but there's ESG score and then there's ESG controversies score. And the factors that they look into are environmental, social, and governance. And underneath that, there's resource use, emissions, and innovation under environmental. Under social, there's workforce, human rights, community, product responsibility. And then under governance, there's management, shareholders, corporate responsibility. And then the controversy score.
You want to throw it up, Arnie? Sorry to talk over you, but I think you've been given the power.
I'll share my screen. The power of the gods. Give me a moment. All right, let's have a go here, boys. Just let me get it going. Sharing. Can you guys see? Yeah, the governance scores.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then the ESG controversy score there. So, controversies across all 10 categories aggregated into one category score. And then you can, as you sort of scroll down here, this is the sources that they get their scores from. So you've got annual reports, company websites, NGO websites, stock exchange filings, company sustainability reports, and news sources, and they feed that in, and then they get their database going. So they cover, this is Refinitiv, they cover a number of markets and exchanges, and they can sort of show you there how much they cover. And then when you get down to here, this is how they sort of measure it. They have different weightings against the different categories, which they go into a little bit lower here. Let me just find it for the tankers. There. So it's just an interesting way to think about like how your stocks are being rated. And I guess one other point to mention is you don't always have to buy a stock that's, a perfect ESG rating, because as Brad said, like they might be moving towards a better ESG rating. Some industries might just suffer because of the industry they're in. Like, I guess if you think about the tobacco industry, will that ever be an ESG? Will that ever get a really good score in an ESG sense? I don't know. So it's a hard one, but I guess if you think about, they could be doing everything they could in all of those ESG categories, but then the one which comes down to like a social responsibility, like you're selling a product that ultimately is going to make people sick or die. I don't think they'll ever score well there. So it's just an interesting look about how a broker and will outsource this work to, get a score going for ESG. And I look at it now.
Great diverse point there, mate. It was good last slide to be able to show the listeners and the watchers to be able to see how the scores work. And I think we've all covered off some terrific overlays on ESG and talks all different points. So watch this space. It's going to be more and more prevalent as we go, as we've mentioned before in the past and the future. Next up on the run sheet, we wanted to chat a little bit about getting a crypto update and also mixed in with some news as well. Arnold?
Yeah, mate, we did a crypto roundup and then we're going to do a financial news roundup. So I don't know, like this is just sort of a general segment we're going to stick with. So there might not be heaps of crypto news, but Braddles is our obvious crypto guy. I haven't heard much in the crypto space. What's going on with it?
What's going on in the crypto space? Can I have a share screen, please?
Sure.
Can I have the power is yours?
Captain Planet?
Captain Planet, Captain Crypto. Can play multiple personalities. Host is disabled.
Yeah, Jolie's just doing it now.
No problems.
So start talking, mate, and we'll...
Oh, no problems. All right, so crypto roundup. I was going to...
you have the power.
I have the power now. I'm just going to be throwing up crypto. Let's have a look. All right. So coin market cap, crypto roundup for the week that has been. Look, pretty flatsy. I mean, there is different movements in coins, but we're sitting around about $29,790 or $30,000 a coin still for Bitcoin USD, and around 1,800 for ETH. In terms of, I guess, the main kind of stories for this week, Terraform Labs. So we talked about Luna, I think, a couple of weeks back, and I think 17 cents was kind of what was left of the Luna.
No, it's zero now, mate.
It's zero now. No. But you know, it's called Luna Classic. There is Luna Classic out there now. And so Terraform Labs have launched Luna 2.0, and I think this is a just quick one that I want to touch on for a few reasons. You have Duquan, who's the original founder, saying a chance to rise up anew from the ashes, and it's going to trade under the old Luna ticker, Luna, and the old one's going to change to Luna Classic. Investors who lost money in Terraform Labs may, and most have, been airdropped some new coins, depending on the ratio determined by the company. And basically everyone that I know in the space is looking at this as a reason why there needs to be more regulation, and looking at it as a bit of a shun on crypto assets and the whole crypto market as a whole, that you basically can have a product that destroyed 500 billion worth of value on the overall crypto, and I think 45-50 billion themselves, and then a couple of weeks later show up, relaunch a coin, airdrop it, and pretend kind of like you've learnt your lesson and let's keep going again. I think it's a pro and a con. I think it's good that we iterate within crypto.
And that was the coin, Brad, they were trying to digitally peg, weren't they? They were trying to have
using
that
algorithmic
have that replicate, which obviously they may have learnt or may not have learnt. But
yeah, I mean, they believe they've learnt the lesson, but I don't think that the lesson should be learned, and like it always has in crypto. There's always lessons, and I love that the community gets together, learns a lesson, and applies it in real time. But I don't think the person making that mistake and losing that much money should get back up and try and do it again 2 weeks later. Again, my own personal opinion. There's that. The EU have recently put together a new, the European Securities and Markets Authority have been given basically authority by the overall EU government to put together basically some regulations around crypto issuers and service providers, which is quite big. And they're putting together, which is called the MiCA bill at the moment. And the legislation is introduced in 2020, and they're still talking through the legal framework for asset managers. But if you're involved in crypto, I would probably go and have a look at where that MiCA bill is currently at. There's a few things in there that obviously the EU on many things, like we're talking about ESG, are quite hardcore, and crypto, I think they're going to take some big regulation steps. So just worthwhile if you are into crypto or just curious about it, go have a look at the MiCA bill and see where kind of current things are, because they're coming up with a vote on it soon. And last but not least, the big move of this week, in the positive until today, it's down about 11%, but Cardano. So I mentioned it last week. It went up about 26% a couple of days ago. And it's basically one of the only greens that you'll see there on the screen at the moment. Again, I think they're slow and steady. A lot of Luna developers are now moving over to Cardano because they're seeing Cardano as slow and steady wins the race instead of fast and sharp decline like Luna. So that is the the crypto roundup.
Mate, everyone's just got to flee to the safe haven that is SHIB.
Safe haven.
That's a good one. I got a few news items from the financial news, and if you boys have any as well, just jump in. Brad, you actually kind of touched on one earlier when we were talking about ESG, which was the Deutsche Bank is being investigated by ESG authorities in Germany over the greenwashing claims, basically saying, well, they haven't actually released any findings, but they're saying they found evidence. This is general in nature.
Bank. Yeah.
General in nature. They found evidence in Deutsche Bank of potential fraud, i.e. greenwashing. So I don't know, cooking those books a little bit to make themselves look like they're passing this ESG threshold. I don't know what threshold they're actually measuring against, but interesting to see that that's making the news. And
cooking books, Arnie, it sounds like a big casino in Melbourne that we spoke about the other day.
Oh yeah, what happened there? Like, touch on that news.
The article for Crown was they what was it? They were sort of taking in overseas money, mainly Asian money, and I think putting it in as hotel expenses and room expenses that weren't related to the casino, so that they were able to get the money and avoid tax, I believe, from maybe the Chinese or the Taiwanese economy when they're bringing money over.
So dodgy.
So yeah, and that was back from maybe 6-8 years ago. So old mates in town there at Crown, just in the news again. We were joking. It's a circle of life for them. They'll do something. They'll get a slap on the wrist by the government and say, we're thinking of taking your license off you. And they'll go to a committee and talk about it. And they'll say, oh, look, just do it. Don't do it again. We're going to give you a really big fine here. Don't do it again. Just be good. And then the circle of life will happen again. They'll do something. And then we're here again. So
they got slapped 80 million, you said, or did you say 80 million?
80 mil, yeah. And look, they hold the only license, and the government grants them that license, so they can remove it if they want to. And who knows, for the sake of competition, it might be good for them to open it up to someone else, but or another casino to compete. But yeah, it's old mates are always in the news.
Yeah, just a few other little items, and this is I can't go through a podcast without mentioning Elon Musk. So Elon Musk is in the news because he said that employees need to return to the office for 40-hour work week, and if they don't like it at his companies, he said, this is quote Elon Musk, they can go and pretend to work somewhere else.
And I think it was a minimum so they can spend a minimum of their 40-hour work week. So it's basically indicating that, most people there probably do 60 to 100, and you have to spend at least 40. And it also was at the relevant location. So you cannot be in San Francisco and be the HR representative of a factory in Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was. This caused a big outcry already. I think he was talking about the executive. I need to look deeper into the news, but it's being taken just on that face value on that quote, and everyone's getting very up in arms about it. But on related Tesla news, I don't know if you boys heard about this, but Tesla was removed from the Standard & Poor's ESG 500 index, and that also caused a bit of a kerfuffle because people were saying, like, how has Tesla been removed from that index when you've got like oil giants are still in that index? Like, we need some more transparency around how you, Standard & Poor's, are rating those scores to kick a company like that out when you've got other ones still in there. So it could all come down to how they're accounting for it. And, I don't want to say they're greenwashing, general in nature, but who knows? So I've got a few other.
And you also have them moving towards being completely like vertical integrated, and so they're buying mining companies and they're buying all sorts of lithium assets and the rest of it, and so it could just be that that's pushed them over the end. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out.
Here's a few other little rapid fire news items, boys. So we've got GameStop Q1 net sales 1.38 billion, estimated 1.33 billion. However, first quarter adjusted loss per share $2.08, where it was estimated to be $1.16 loss. Hewlett Packard shares down 8% after hours. Biden administration has said that they're working hard, but they can't get gas prices to drop overnight. Apparently over there, it's really, they're feeling the pain at the Bowser. I've seen some like screenshots online of like, $8 or $9 a gallon. So,
which is, which works out to be about $2 US litre, because 4 litres in a gallon. And it depends where you are. So if you're in California, I've been living there for 4.5 years and kind of more recently and seeing the craziness of how much they care about oil in America.
Yeah.
I mean, places like California, your blue states are generally higher taxing on oil, but you can still get oil. I mean, Arnie, quickly do a Google for me. Texas, give me the price per gallon in Texas.
Texas price per gallon of gas.
Yep. Call it gas as well. They don't like to call that petrol over there.
Yeah, well, I wonder what we'd get if we said petrol. So at the moment, it's showing me the regular is $4.29.
So we're talking about $1 US, $1.05 US per litre. So you're talking about $1.30, $1.40. Compare it to what we're paying over here, and you'll probably find a slight difference.
That's always a bit tricky, isn't it? Yeah, because I always think, oh man, $9 sounds massive, but when you say it like that, I didn't think about it like converting to litres. We've been paying $2 a litre forever.
Yeah. And in the European Union, people are paying nearly $3 a litre. And
really?
So it's just that Americans, it's the one thing that it's such a hot political topic because of the old oil embargoes, and they like to see themselves as obviously a net exporter now, and they're one of the biggest producers of oil and gas in the world, if not the biggest now. And there's this kind of political thing, which is, if Trump was in power, this wouldn't be happening. And that's basically the political scene over there at the moment, which is you're letting the war in Ukraine and ourselves, pay higher gas, and you're at fault. This happened a month after Biden took office. Prices of oil started going up, and just due to geopolitical. And so, don't get me wrong, there's things that obviously the government can do. But at the same time, it is definitely a overhyped topic, in my opinion.
Well, a few more just little rapid fire news items. In response to this, GM has been slashing the prices in the US, of their Chevy Bolt, trying to push electric vehicles out the door. And Tesla has announced that they're delaying some deliveries of their long-range vehicles because of they didn't say this, but it's been speculated because of the issues they're having with their production in China at the moment. So that's the roundup.
Last but not least, oil. So I would say that the European Union came out, oil again, and why the US government probably can't, Biden can't really control oil prices. The European Union, I think about 36 hours ago now, put in other than, I'm going to just mention Hungary, Czech Republic, one more, there's someone else out there. Anyway, one other country, smaller Eastern
Bloc country.
Eastern Bloc country. Other than that, they're putting in an oil ban. And at the moment, Russia supplies 25% of all oil into the EU. And so that makes, therefore, other oil, where they can get it around the world, demand supply. So if you're banning something that you suck up 25% of and you need to go get it somewhere else, it's going to push up the price of oil.
Supply demand.
So supply demand. So just note that one, and also the possible flow-on effects from that as a part of cost of goods and logistics on economies. And the last one is that China, I think 2 days ago, Shanghai supposedly is reopening. So you're seeing kind of,
that'll be massive if they
do. We'll see what, markets responded positively. We'll see what that is, but it looks like
they're so integral to shipping and import exports. They need to, and hopefully they've got a different. They're changing their tune on how they're trying to contain or not contain the virus now, and moving on, because it does impact the world so dramatically, and especially Australia with our links with them. So
they're the engine room. They're the engine room of manufacturing. Like the world doesn't move without China.
Correct. Yeah, when you see that Google image of that shipping port, it was incredible from a month ago. A couple of last technical things, I guess, from updating from the federal election that sort of comes through and flows through our desk that we speak to clients about. There's a few changes that'll come into play that'll impact probably more your pre-retirees and closer to retirees. So they've changed a few things around eligibility for people for healthcare cards. They're freezing some deeming rates. They're changing a couple of the bigger measures. Or one of the things they're looking at doing is the Help to Buy scheme. So there's going to be a change from the Liberal government as potentially accessing 50 grand from your super to buy your first home. How that wasn't supported by the new government that's come in, so that'll be a change. But there are still a couple of Help to Buy schemes out there, so keep an eye on those coming out and announcements coming up about how they'll look. And then the extended to downsizer contribution. So essentially the downsizer was only available from 65 to 60, but then now they've changed it down to 55. So if someone is selling their home, because they want to try to free up bigger homes and create movement for families to come in. So they're going to support people that are over 55 in, say, pre-retirement phase. If they sell their home, they've got the ability to have any excess large lump sum contributions into super, which are a separate contribution altogether. There'll be some tax cuts coming in from July 23. And a few other bits and pieces. So yeah, keep an eye out for all those things. So there's some interesting things to come from that. And that is just a quick fire federal government wrap up from the election that will come into play in the new financial year.
Good stuff. And that now leads us into our newest segment. Where in the world is Brad Tabone?
That is out again. And I need to share screen again.
Sorry, mate. No
You still
worries.
got control?
No, I'm giving it now.
All right. I think I wonder if we can use like the Carmen Sandiego theme music. Would that be? It'd probably be a copyright issue.
All right. This is where I am. Can you all see that?
Ooh, that looks beautiful.
Sold at a uni. Visited this place back in 2013 in Bolivia. And biggest salt flat in the world. I'm going to share my screen again and explain why I'm there. Lithium's been in the news the past week or 3 days. Big kind of drop in share prices due to Goldman Sachs report coming out saying that lithium is basically there's an oversupply, and due to the high cost of lithium, that it's creating an oversupply, and there's like a run on it. Usually demand and supply things, and this caused kind of, I'd say, the two big main players in Australia being Pillars to go 21% down over the last week, and Alchem down about 16%. And both these companies operate largely in Argentina. This is called the Lithium Triangle for those tankers on the screen. A bit of education about something else. We did the Nubian Shield last week. We're doing the Lithium Triangle today. And the uni, which I showed you just before, is up there in Bolivia and is the greatest untapped, basically, resource of lithium in the world. Makes up about 40 to 50%. So 70% of the world's lithium is in this triangle for tankers. And so if you're into EV and such things, this is an area to kind of look into and be aware of. With that said, the reason, the hat's off now, back to Brad. The reason why Tabone was kind of over there and having a look in was largely because I think that, again, general advice, I'm probably going to be looking at personally buying in a little bit over the next week or two. Again, general advice, don't follow me, don't do any of that stuff. This is just kind of giving you factual information. I think totally been oversold. There's been a report come out from Canaccord, which kind of rebuts a lot of the Goldman Sachs reports. So there's a Goldman Sachs report out there. You can find it, just Google it. There's also a Canaccord report out there for those that are interested in lithium stocks and investment that kind of counters it, saying that high-grade deliveries of lithium are always going to be a problem, and for a long time yet. There's a lot of low-cost and low-quality lithium coming onto the market, but that doesn't necessarily meet the needs of where it's at the moment. And so Pillars Minerals is probably the biggest one. They hold a big project here in Australia, but also some stuff in Argentina. Alchem is mainly Argentina, and LRS is my little specky that I'm looking at, Latin Resources, and they're down 21%, 16%, 17%. And so again, do your
exchange? What exchange they traded on?
ASX.
Okay, yeah, cool.
And so I guess the reason why I brought that up this week, and kind of one is to kind of let everyone know about the Lithium Triangle. The other one is some lithium stocks and how they've been kind of hit by the Goldman Sachs report, and a possible buying opportunity depending on your own research and assessment of those stocks. But they're just a couple of interesting ones.
As we always say, general in nature, seek your own advice, professional advice. Cheers, guys.
I love that. I love that new segment. It's good. All right, so we're going into Q&A. And we've got, it was actually a comment from one of our longtime listeners, Chris Kilikowski. So thank you for the comment, Killer. And we thought we might take it just to read it out, but then also give our thoughts about what we think about what he said. So just for context, on the last podcast, we spoke about the Metricon issue and how they're having trouble with the input cost of commodities and that maybe being passed on to consumers, but also the fact that they might be in financial distress. And Brad and I made some comments, general in nature, about how we thought that the Andrews government might work with them to broker a deal and maybe bail them out of anything that was happening. So Killer has said, great chat. Have to disagree with bailing out Metricon. If they fail, existing shareholders will lose money. The new deleveraged owners can restructure the company to run better, which is great for the consumer long term. It creates a moral hazard by privatizing the profits and socializing the losses. Obviously, he's talking in relation to a bailout. Good example is letting Virgin Airlines and Oz restructure. They're finally making a profit. On the flip side, look at Holden's $200 million bailout and where that left them. So thoughts on that, boys? Initial thoughts? Go, Brad.
Yeah, initial thoughts. I didn't even remember we talked about bailing out Metricon. So that was my first comment. With that said, I don't agree with bailing out kind of Metricon. And if I kind of insinuated last week, I did. Definitely take that one back. I believe that if they've got 4,000 homes currently in build. And so I don't believe the company, if they do end up kind of, facing financial, which it's gone quite quiet in the news. Other companies are going under, but Metricon doesn't seem to be kind of any more news flow there. But if Metricon did, face and they put up 4,000 homes at risk, the only thing I'd be in kind of pro for, I guess, is not necessarily bailing out Metricon as a company, but some sort of government assistance into those home buyers that have a building to ensure that their homes continue to get built.
I think there's protection mechanisms in place for
depending on the state.
Depending on the state,
depending on the state and depending on the amount. And so there's no doubt that there is higher input costs at the moment. I mean, Joel was talking about this earlier with an investment property, and so that's a decision that has to be made and taken into account. But there's also laws in different states as well. Again, I'm not privy of every single state law, but if you've got a house that is contracted to get built at a certain amount, it's contracted to get built at that amount, and home buyers aren't necessarily have to get put up to pay for the extras, and that's what's causing, I guess, the big impact on domestic home builders here in Australia.
There's a couple of smaller ones that have gone under recently in the news, and I did read about the one up north. I think that they've left the people with those homes, they've actually left them in a better position because they've sort of done more than what they've actually paid for. So then they have to engage now with another builder just to finish the rest off. But that's where the issue of the cost rise might be, where they expected to budget for $400K for a home, but now they've got to bring someone else in, and they've got to add a bit extra on because of the input costs. And that's where these big builders are struggling, like your Metricons, because they are large scale and they operate at a tighter margin. So when that tighter margin gets shrunk by these input costs, then they're starting to feel the squeeze. And I guess Metricon, I've never really heard of them in the news before for having issues such as financial issues. So potentially is a one-off predicament they're in, and we are in an environment that is unusual. So whether it's a bailout, whether it's a loan to help to be funded back again, because it's not like they're a company that's over and over again seeking help and government assistance. And I agree in that if you're a company that's continually, needing this help from the government, then that company needs to be potentially restructured and reformulated as to operating, well by itself. But whether Metricon's in that position, I don't know. It might be a one-off type environment, as we are in that kind of crazy times at the moment with input prices.
I've had to bring in another co-host because I've got a bit of a sick bubba here today. So you guys can say hi to Livy. But
Livy? What does Livy thought on this topic?
I don't know what Livy's all about, but I actually didn't hear your answers, so I'm just going to step out of answering this one.
She might need to get her name on the background, mate. But no, we appreciate the chats and the comments, guys. So Killer, thanks for the comment, and it's great to chat and talk through these situations. And there's no necessarily right or wrong answer, but there's definite thoughts and feelings around one way or the other. And I think it's based by company and state by state in terms of in that aspect. But yeah, let's hope the input inflation costs start to subside a touch so people can get these homes built. And, it's a big part of their lives. So you can really feel for anyone going through that situation. So we've touched on that, and 50-50 guys. So with wrapping up and cognizant of time today, and keep the questions coming in as well. So all the different social media feeds will answer your questions on Facebook or YouTube or anything like that, or email. Feel free to reach into the podcast. So more than happy to answer questions. They're great when we have them come in, whether it's a 50-50 or a topic, we'll hit it.
Well, let me hit you with a 50-50 off the top of my dome then. Speaking about ESG, boys, if you were forced to invest in one company today, would you rather invest in Tesla or ExxonMobil?
Oh. Right now?
Right now, you have to do it. Do you want me to give you the stock price of each one?
Nah, ExxonMobil. I know that's horrible. From a purely investment perspective. Or are you talking about me personally?
You could give us a little bit of your rationale if you want.
No, I'll go ExxonMobil. I think, look, end of the day, oil's here for a while. Massive oil reserves, but they're also looking into renewables and investing quite heavily into that space. I think Tesla is still overvalued for what it is. So there you go. That's my rationale.
No, fair enough. Jolie?
I like the rationale with Brad. I'll go with ExxonMobil.
I think you guys have picked up my like in speech. I think it's ExxonMobil.
Mobil, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it is ExxonMobil, but yeah. Arnie?
Oh, I'm obviously going Tesla. I would invest in Tesla at this stock price.
Loves Elon.
Love Elon.
And a light-hearted one, boys. The finals starting tomorrow. Warriors or Celtics, 50-50.
Oh, I'm going Boston. Going Celtics.
Boston.
Warriors.
Warriors and how many, Brad? Warriors in?
I think it's going to go to the last game. I think it's going to be tight.
Tight game.
I reckon it's going to 7 as well. Boston 7.
Warriors at their home ground at 7. Boston away at 7. And I'll say Warriors in 6 at Boston to close it. We'll see, guys. But always a pleasure. Great to catch up. We're knocking out consistent podcasts now. So hopefully the listeners are enjoying. Keep those questions coming in. Arnie, do you want to tell where they can hit us up at?
Yeah, get us at Money in the Tank, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tankers.
Look forward to seeing you all next week. Cheers.
See you all.
Yeah, bye.